Now, one of the more anticipated games of the 2014 opening weekend, I looked down, it's Wisconsin against this LSU place. Are you familiar at all with this school?
I am, and I'm married to a Badger, so in the house it's going to be interesting. Of course, we're both rooting for the Badgers.
Interesting is one way to describe what the house will be on that day. Rick Pizzo, Jerry DiNardo back with you on BTN Live. We are joined now by the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers, Gary Andersen. Gary, we have months and months to look ahead to the LSU game, so we'll worry about that later. I think right now we worry about spring ball. You had your game this past weekend. We talked to you about 5 or 6 practices in, and it struck me when you told us that at that point, basically, almost every position was up for open and healthy competition, even the quarterback spot. How did that quarterback position play itself out thus far?
Well, you know, it's still definitely a competition. And if you go through spring, it's not a spring game. It's not just one scrimmage. It's all 15 practices. And quite frankly, the days off, how they're preparing and how they're handling themselves and how they're growing. And it's, right now, it's, you know, Joel and Tanner have separated themselves. And I believe that DJ, if you sat back and watched the spring game and you see what he did in that game, he did some good things. The challenge for DJ was the other 14 practices and the meetings, and he's handling them better and better as he continues to grow. So, you know, it's a fight.
Coach, to continue with DJ, the day we were at practice and Saturday at the spring game, DJ lined up in some spread. How difficult is it offensively to integrate the spread and the traditional pro attack?
Well, I don't think it's overly difficult, especially up front, Coach, with, you know, if you're going to run some power schemes as far as the blocking goes, those offensive linemen and the fullback or whoever it may be that's kicking out on the power play doesn't really care how it's getting there, if it's a quarterback power or what have you. If it's a zone read play and, you know, we're running zone, which is one of our core base run plays, it's still zone regardless of how it's getting done with the running backs. And I think one thing I'd like to do is incorporate the athletic quarterback there in some certain situations, whatever that quarterback may be, DJ or Tanner.
You lose 25 seniors from a year ago. How close are you to settling the 2 deep at this point?
Very settled. Had a long meeting this morning, about a 2-hour staff meeting, and sitting back and just trying to talk to the staff and listen to the offense talk about the defense talk about the offense, and then the offense and defense both talk about themselves. And I shared my thoughts from what I see as I go back as a head coach and look at it, and I feel like we're in a very good spot. Now, we're relying on a couple of young kids to come in certain situations, but I think if you look at your 2 deep right now, and really not even so much your 2 deep, just how are you going to be effective as a football team on offense and defense, you've got to be real careful about saying, well, a young guy's going to come in and I'm sure he's going to come in and play. So if that happens, it's great, but the bottom line is we got to use the kids that are here, proven players in our program, and we think we've got a pretty good 2 deep going.
Gary, among those 25 guys whose eligibility has been used up, we've talked so much about what you lose with Chris Borland at linebacker and James White at running back, but one guy whose departure may be at least outside of Madison underappreciated a bit, much like his career was underappreciated a bit, and that's Jared Abbrederis. He always had the big game or the big catch when you needed it most. What receiver is ready or receivers are ready to pick up that slack?
Now, that was another topic of conversation today in the staff meeting. And, you know, we say we're going to have somebody come in and replace Jared. You know, we're mistaken. If one young man is going to walk in this door and take over where Jared was a year ago, that's not going to happen. It's going to have to be 2 or 3 kids. So as you look at us, we'll get Alex Erickson back. He'll come back off the injury. He'll be here in the fall. We've got to look and say Robert Wheelwright has got to get himself on the field and be ready to go. Jordan Frederick, who had a shoulder injury in spring, he was out. He's got to be back and ready to go. Kenzel Doe, who had a very good spring. His best time here, I think, as far as when we've been here, is as far as putting 15 good, solid practices back together and made some big plays. So the core of those kids in the program is important. Now you've got to look back and say, okay, can one of those 5 receivers or 2 of those 5 receivers walk in here and help us?
Coach, Saturday you made the point that the transition's been complete. All the staff knows what we're doing. The players get their new routine. Specific to recruiting, what's the most important thing you've learned about recruiting as it relates specifically to Wisconsin?
Well, the first thing is the importance to let people understand that if we just get into a home or we get into a high school or we get on the phone with parents and a young man or mentor of a young man, All we have to do is show them what we're about. We don't have to sell Wisconsin. You don't have to sell the education. You don't have to sell the facility. You just have to show them. Then from there, it's about continually building those relationships of we are going to be here for you. And what is our plan? How do we become a family? What are we about in the recruiting process? Why are we different than the other schools that are recruiting on the way that we take care of you? And that's something that we have to continually grow as a staff. We got a great handle on that now after 1 year.
Now, Gary, Jerry and I have worked together for about 7 years, though I think we would both agree it feels like at least 2 decades. It's hard for me to believe when I first met you, had a chance to chat with you in Pasadena, that hasn't even been 18 months yet. It feels like you've been at Wisconsin for longer than that. Do you feel like it's been a longer period than less than a year and a half?
Well, I don't know if it's good or bad. You guys are already tired of me?
No, not at all. No, it just feels like you fit in so well, Coach. That's all.
Okay, I'm buying that one. That's good. I like that. I like that that little avenue better. It's been a long time, but you're right. It feels like it. And one day it'll feel like it's gone real fast. On the other days, it feels like we've got a lot of miles to get to this point. But it's been a great run. It is exciting to get through the whole cycle one time. It's just the waters have calmed, and it was some rough seas. And as you go through transition, that's always there. But the bottom line is, as the staff, and I know I do, I wake up every day very excited about the kids I get to be around at the university that I get to represent, and a big smile on my face. So, what more can you ask for? I hope it goes for many, many years.
Well, Gary, we feel the exact same way. Many, many years, and it won't feel like one day longer than it actually is. Gary Andersen, head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers. Gary, thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day. Go Badgers.
Hey, when we come back, DiNardo's got the Reliant K car all fueled up, set to get back on the road. But where's he been over the past 7 days? We revisit trips to East Lansing and Iowa City when BTN Live returns.